Hello, everybody. Welcome to GICE TV. Today we have with us Ms. Anuradha Rao, who is the CEO of Lead Solutions. Welcome to GICE TV, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, since you've been in the HR profession, the first question to you is there a gender bias while you hire fresh HR professionals into your industry?
Absolutely not. I am not too sure as to where this question is coming from at all. Uh, in my experience, which has been for more than 2 decades now, I haven't seen a gender bias at all. And considering that diversity is something that is integral to all organizations and is being spearheaded in more ways than one by HR, I don't see this creeping in any form whatsoever. So I'm a little surprised with the question itself, actually. So the answer is not at all, not at all.
So it's more of a rumor mongering which happens and it's not a reality.
See, I wouldn't even call it a rumor mongering. I don't know where is this inference coming from. Okay. Statistically speaking, it's possible that we have just seen more women in HR roles than men. But I'm just kind of going back to my own role, and I've realized that I've had more male bosses in human resources than women bosses. So perhaps there is something that is indicative of it at all. So statistically speaking, it might have just happened there, but that cannot be an indicator of gender bias.
It's just that there have been more women in profession.
Absolutely. It just so happens. But I am looking at and I'm seeing that there are a lot of men who have moved into human resources, who moved in as head of HR from operations into human resources. So I wouldn't call it a gender bias, not at all.
Ma'am, you've had over 22 years of experience in the HR field. So how has the function of HR evolved over time?
I would say that it is moved from a very transactional role to something which is very transformational. So for a very long time, human resources has been seen as a function which is responsible for implementing policies and procedures, implementing benefits, identifying benefits, to be the single point of contact between the benefits provider and perhaps the employee and so on. But I think it's been something which is a very age-old understanding of the way human resources function, was rather. Today it's very transformational. Most of the transactional work has moved into what we term as HR operations. So irrespective of which vertical I am sitting in, whether I am responsible for recruitment, whether I'm responsible for learning and development, or HR business partner role, I am essentially in a consulting role. And if I am in a consulting role, then I'm essentially working with my stakeholders, having very strong conversations, very relevant conversations and discussions with them, and facilitating a conversation that will help them transform their own business and their process, which is something that has happened in the last, I would think, a decade. We have a lot of, the number of HR professionals, and I would think even from operations, but we are talking about human resources now, so let's kind of stay with that. The number of HR professionals who are getting certified into coaching is fantastic, and I guess that would be an indicator of saying how consulting and ensuring that HR is a transformational function, or a facilitative function is prevalent, is something that's standing out, I would guess.
Well, you've actually answered our next question, which was the different roles and responsibilities which an HR undertakes. But all the students would love to know, there is a new concept called as the HR business partner. Who is this person?
It's not a very new concept at all. It's been there for a very long time, I would think. And this time is I guess the time map that I have in my head with my experience. Your HR business partner essentially is your go-to person in an organization. So, as an employee, if I have a problem with my manager, if I have questions and concerns around policies and procedures, if I need to raise an issue, if I need to have a conversation with someone around my career, and that someone needs to be someone other than my manager, then he or she would essentially be my HR business partner. And the word itself is essentially telling you that there is somebody from human resources who's partnering with me to ensure that I'm able to contribute to the business itself. So while each of the functions have very specific roles to cater to, so I have a recruitment function which is primarily responsible for hiring, sourcing and staffing. I have an L&D team which is primarily responsible for process product leadership training. I have a compensation and benefits team that talks essentially around compensation and of course benefits. I have one person who is the HR business partner who is essentially my single point of contact for the employee. Right? He or she is the person who I'm going to rely on to get me any and every kind of support, and perhaps even a sounding board. And that's who your HR business partner essentially is.
And this HR business partner, is he a mid-level manager or somewhere in the senior level, the top level?
You have both middle level and senior level. So we have, for example, if an organization, let's say, has 3 sites, then you would have an HR business partner for the site who would in turn have X number of people managing Y number of employees in terms of span of control itself. So you would have it at both middle and senior management levels.
Ma'am, what's the scope of an HR professional? I mean, in the future, being the CEO of a company or leading a company, because there's always this talk going on that an HR professional has its limits. He can go up till maybe a vice president's level. Beyond that, life seems a little ambiguous.
I have huge concerns with that thought process itself. Statistically speaking, perhaps we have had very few people who've moved from HR as CEOs or at a CXO level, and I'm saying that perhaps that is the case statistically speaking, which would be true perhaps in the past. But there is no reason or no rule to say that there is a limit for someone with an HR background to emerge as a CEO of a company. If you were to look at the 4 big consulting firms, you have HR verticals and you have CEOs for each of these HR verticals sitting as as CEOs there. You have huge HR consulting firms where you have CEOs. There is nothing. I'm the CEO of an organization which does very little of HR consulting work, but which is primarily into education. So I think it's just a perception, and I don't know where this perception is coming from. So, and I have a huge problem with even responding to this perception.
So it's more of maybe, as you said earlier, it's more of thinking. It's not something which happens in reality.
I don't know if it's even a thinking or a thought process at all. It's as bizarre to me as someone saying that women can't be good drivers or men can't be good cooks or what people from business can't do human resources. I mean, I don't know. In today's day and age, lateral movement is something that has been encouraged because there's only that much growth that you can give, that much of vertical growth that can be given. If in an organization we are promoting lateral growth, and at the same time we are living with the perception that somebody in HR cannot be the CEO of the organization, there is a basic contradiction in terms, and I don't understand how any organization can function thus.
Ma'am, having said that, you've had a very successful career in the corporate world, and now you are a successful entrepreneur. How has your journey been, and what has been your experience so far?
I would like to think of myself as a successful entrepreneur, yes. My journey has been very, very interesting, I would say. Started off my career as an entrepreneur, then moved into the corporate world, stayed with the corporate world for about 12 years, and now I'm back into being an entrepreneur. So it has had its ups and downs, I guess. But I guess um, what has sustained me completely is, or rather, what has enriched me, is the fact that I have held roles in organizations, in geographies, challenging roles, which has primarily been held by men. And the fact that I've been able to do that is a huge success factor for me itself. Well, there's that to it, and yeah, coming back to being an entrepreneur, I guess is what I always wanted to do. So yeah, I guess that in overall, it's been a fantastic career graph that I've seen for myself, grown through human resources, moved from L&D to human resources, and now into education and human resources. So it's been fantastic.
So you were sure that you wanted to be an entrepreneur someday, or was it just accidental?
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I started off my career as an entrepreneur, and then I joined the corporate world. Um, and I guess there's this one thing that I always liked, and that was my sense of freedom, my the need to wake up in the morning and do exactly what I wanted to do. And I knew that I would get back to being an entrepreneur at some point in time. So yeah, it's my calling to do to experience the freedom and the independence. Yes.
And most of our viewers are either students who are pursuing their MBA or people who are actually thinking of MBA as a future education. So what's your advice or suggestions for them?
Uh, Advice and suggestion, I guess, would be, they are very big words, but I can tell you what has helped me in getting to where I am. A lot of people have said that perhaps it's more important for these three qualities that I'll talk about, which is more important for women. But I would think it's true for any individual. In today's day and age, it becomes extremely important for an individual to project himself or herself with the conviction of his or her beliefs. There are very few people we meet who are completely convinced about it. Faith, trust in another human being is primarily driven when I see a high conviction and there is clarity of thought. So I would personally think that for someone to have a good career, irrespective of whether it's the corporate world or outside, clarity, conviction, and confidence are three things that a person needs to display. If there is clarity of thought and conviction of beliefs, confidence will follow. But we tend to, for whatever reason, to focus a lot on confidence. But what is confidence? I need to display confidence about myself. So the minute clarity and conviction is there, I don't see a challenge of confidence at all. This would be my tidbits, I guess, for the students.
Thanks for being a part of GICE TV.
Most welcome. Most welcome. Thank you. It was my pleasure entirely too.
Well, that was it from this edition of GICE TV. Thank you for watching.